Hello everyone and welcome back to Two Andrews, One Barbell. Don't know what episode number this is, 7?
8.
8?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Do you know what I heard the other day?
Hit me.
90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And then of the 10% that make it past episode 3, 90% don't make it to episode 20. So 21 and then we can call it quits on the podcast. We make it into the top percent and then it goes to the side.
Yeah, 21 if you're lucky, man. I'm sick of you.
I'll just start doing them myself. I feel like I ramble pretty much half the time anyway.
Yeah. Just have Mario shoot the questions over. So how are you?
Okay. We're a bit behind schedule today.
Yeah.
I was trying to get in here very timely, but there was a massive crash on the motorway. Hopefully no one is particularly injured. But yeah, it was interesting on the motorway. I was watching. People were like cutting between the lanes to try like get ahead faster.
2 seconds faster.
And then what kept happening, and I was just like watching, was someone would cut into the lane beside, because that one looks like it's going quicker. As soon as they go into that lane slows down, and you end up passing them, so they're further back. But then they see your lane moving quickly, so then they jump back into your lane, but they're like 3 spots further behind from where they were initially. So I'm sure there's some analogy or metaphor for life in there.
People do that in powerlifting.
Yeah. So like, stop looking for the shortcut or the quick fix. Just stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Just
It
keep
will move.
crawling along.
It
Just
will
keep
move.
going, and you'll get to your destination quicker. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting. That was my traffic wisdom for the morning. Yeah.
Andrew is normally way earlier than me. Andrew normally comes way sooner.
Oh yeah.
So I was here like 20 minutes before Andrew, first time ever and probably last time ever.
Yeah. And what did you do in the meantime? Kept yourself busy?
Kept myself busy, took some calls, coaching replies.
Damn,
Yeah.
businessman.
Yeah.
Businessman. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's kind of time now that all the work on my thesis I've been doing, I really have to do work on it now. It's been a bit like handy. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
I kind of said that the other day and people were like, what the fuck, what do you mean handy? It's been like smooth sailing. Like as long as you keep rolling forward with momentum and don't completely sit down, I feel like I've been snowballing a little bit. But
along.
now the snowball is big and I have a lot to do.
Big
So
balls just coming at you.
balls coming at me. Okay, so my thesis is on basically exploring effective brain injury rehabilitation
Yeah.
in Ireland with psychologists, right, with clinical neuropsychs,
Yeah.
and doing interviews one-on-one. Then I have to transcribe the interview.
Okay.
Okay, so take it from audio to written.
Yeah.
And then with the written form, the hard copy, I go through a whole, it's called thematic analysis, and I look for the themes, right? The themes and trends through everybody's answers, and then I come up with like basically an accumulation of everybody's answers.
Yeah.
So now I'm at the point where I've done a lot of interviews. I have like a couple left, a couple participants left. So that's all fine. That's easy. I do the interview and I forget about it, or I transcribe it and forget about it. But now I have to like sit down and I go to the library after this.
Together and when does it have to be done?
Early March.
Okay.
A month.
Yeah. Do you feel like
Go
that's
to a
a
month.
comfortable time frame?
It's
for you to get
definitely
it done?
comfortable. It's definitely comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah. I've put myself in a good position now. All
Yeah.
the times we can actually talk about this today as well.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
the times I didn't really want to do it.
Yeah.
But I did it anyway.
Yeah,
Has now
yeah,
put me
I
in a
like
place
that.
where I'm
I like
not
that.
struggling, so I have a bit of time to keep going at this pace, as opposed to going, oh fuck, I haven't done
I have
anything.
to do everything now. Yeah. Interesting. That's actually one of the questions. Maybe I'll skip ahead. So today we're going to do like a Q&A kind of format thing.
Yeah.
We'll try condense as much nonsense into this because we're a little bit behind schedule before the gym gets too busy and
Yeah.
noisy. But one of the questions, I was actually not going to ask this question at all, but
Hit
since
me.
you brought it up,
Hit me.
it was asking, how have your grades been affected since you started doing the podcast? Now, is that implying that this takes a lot of attention, or this takes a lot of effort, or you're not giving attention to schoolwork? I don't know, because I'm not in
I was
college.
about to say, have your grades been
Yeah,
affected?
I'm not a loser, so
Nah, grades
only
have
kidding.
not been affected. If
Not at all.
If anything,
yeah.
okay, having this has added another level of routine to our routine, right?
Yeah.
It's every 2 weeks, we have to plan it, we have to organize it, we have to do this and that with it. So having that, it's something small,
Yeah.
but when you add it in, when you add in loads of routine, like my nutrition recently, we'll get onto that,
Yeah.
everything falls into place.
Yeah.
As you have some things routine, other things just have to be routined.
Yeah.
Your eating has to be better if I have to get here. I had to get up this morning, I had to sleep earlier last night, yada yada. So if anything, it's only having a positive effect.
I would actually say the same, not in terms of grades and stuff, obviously, but having that routine, that structure of like every 2 weeks we record, then we have the podcast, and then we chop up all those clips, and then you post a clip every other day, and now I'm posting consistently, and then we have something to say. We know we're going to be recording the next podcast. Okay, let me brainstorm ideas, and I find I'm doing way more productive stuff and less not productive stuff because of it. So yeah,
I think
it's a win all around.
That productivity, and when you get your brain flowing in one direction for one thing, just the podcast, it bleeds into other things.
100%.
Like your brain's on, you're just more creative. Your creative juices are flowing.
Yeah, there's some saying, what's that about, like objects that are in motion tend to stay in motion, or some things like that, where if you just get the ball rolling, you're doing something productive. Then
like Newton's laws or something.
Yeah, so you're the science guy.
Yeah, no, that's beyond me. Right? Someone listening will know that shit.
Yeah, so that, and then another one that has really resonated with me lately is the idea that like action comes before motivation. Now, everyone always thinks, oh, like I don't want to go do this thing because I'm not motivated, and I like need motivation to go like do a thing. But more often than not, if you like take a really small action first, then once you have any sort of positive momentum, then the motivation comes along with that to, oh, okay, I might as well actually put some work in. So like what I always find myself doing is, if I know there's a task that I have to do and I don't feel like doing it, thinking what is the absolute like smallest thing that I could do to get myself to move in that trajectory. Like sometimes if I don't want to cook dinner and I'm like, oh, I'd love to just get a takeaway instead of actually cooking, I think, okay, if I just take the food out of the fridge, and then you've taken the food out of the fridge, you're there, you might as well start preparing it, chopping up vegetables, and then you put the thing on. And then before you know it, you're cooking a whole meal. Or sometimes if I don't even want to do that, it's just, okay, if I just stand up off my seat and then I'm up, okay, now I might as well go downstairs. And then once you go downstairs, now I might as well open the fridge. So I always just work back to find what is that like smallest task that I can do that will actually get me moving in a positive direction. Because you can always do something real small. You don't want to train, okay, let me put my shoes on. And then you've got your shoes on, then you might as well go to the gym. Or something I do a lot with the home gym was, I don't want to train, okay, I'll just go in and I'll squat 70. And if I really don't want to train after I squat 70, I'll just pack it in and I won't train then. There was never a single time that I stopped training after squatting 70, because once you squat 70, yeah, I'm fucking here, I might as well keep going. So, yeah.
Take the smallest step possible, right? There's like a very basic and core theory that we always go back to in psychology, just as an example for other things. You know, statistics and everything like this, we always use it as an example. And it's the theory of planned behavior. And it's essentially what was one of the best estimates and best theories to predict people's behavior. How do you predict that someone's going to do anything, right? And the three core pillars are your perceived behavioral control. So can you actually do this? Your attitude towards the behavior. So what you think of the behavior, let's say it's brushing your teeth or squatting in the home gym or making your food. And then the perceived norm. So it, like just how other people perceive it essentially. And then all of this account for, like all of these can predict the intent to behave explicitly, right? But then the intent to behave does fuck all for the behavior, okay? As in, this is so surprising, they like drip fed it to us. They're like, right, so you can get people's attitudes and they can be really strong. You could get someone's perceived behavioral control. You can cook, it's a really easy meal. Or you could squat today, you do it all the time. And then the perceived norm, cooking, eating healthy is cool. Training's cool, I'm gonna get big, strong. And then all that means, let's say you have a really strong intent to behave, right? But then it still doesn't predict behavior overly well. As in, let's say it accounts for like 60% of behavior. But then there's 40% that we for some reason we don't do the behavior, or people do the behavior despite none of these aligning. So that's psychology's best bet, right, at predicting behavior. But it just shows that behaviors can be tricky, like. But I love that the taking the smallest action, because it is a snowball. Like once you actually stand up, you're like, oh, it's like getting out of bed even. It's like once you actually just get out of bed, you can do all the things. And it's once you don't get back into bed.
More often, the discomfort is like the thought of doing the thing, and the procrastination of not wanting to do the thing, and the like when you have homework to do, like you probably waste 10 times the amount of time worrying about the homework, and I don't want to do the homework, and I hate doing the homework. If you just did the homework, then you'd have all that time left to actually relax.
Another thing came to mind there where you were saying action precedes motivation. And I listened to David Goggins talk to Andrew Huberman, right? Big long podcast, fun listen, right? It's
Two controversial people there. Half our listeners have clicked off.
So without getting into it, what Goggins was saying was that instead of like motivational music and pre-workout and all this, he is hyped to lift just because he has this bank in his head of basically self-esteem,
Yeah.
right? So regardless of what you think of Goggins, what he's basically saying is, you know, when you're going into, say, a scary set, or how I took it, when you're going into a session that you don't want to do, or a set that might scare you, or a rep that you think you might not get, you have this bank built up of, well, I've done this before, right? And I can do this, I can do difficult things. And it bleeds into everything. Like, oh, I got through this emotionally difficult time, I can get through this one, right? And the more you do, the more bank you have to face difficulties again. The more evidence you have.
The more confidence you have. That's what, like, confidence comes from.
Confidence comes from doing.
Of showing yourself, okay, I do what I say I can do, I am who I say I am, I have that evidence. Like, that is the foundation for the confidence.
So motivation is volatile and fleeting and atypical and is always different, and sometimes you're so motivated to do something, or you watch a nice movie, or you see a competition, or you see someone lift, or you're just starting a new training block and you're really motivated, but it's so coming and going. So the action does precede just intent to behave, because it's like, I can do it, I like the behavior, it's good. Yeah.
You do it regardless of how you feel. And you were saying from that Goggins and Huberman talk that you took like you sent me that because you took some pieces from that. And did you gain anything that you put towards your own like academic sort of pathway?
First of all, the one I just mentioned was immediately applied, right? Where I was like, man, like I've done this over and over and over again. Like the times where training doesn't feel great, the times where my groove just isn't there on bench. How many times have I said that? Like hundreds at this rate, right? Week on week, we go in and out of like this, like how well training feels. So you can actually just not care. It's actually, like it doesn't matter if it feels shit again. Doesn't matter if it feels shit again. So I'm just going to keep going.
Just keep showing up.
Just keep showing up, because we know it'll come back. I guess it's the confidence from the built-up experience.
I have I don't even know if this ties into that, but I was listening to Hormozy. Let's throw another controversial guy in. More people clicking off. Woohoo! Right. He was talking about something to do with like finite games and infinite games, and I'm gonna like bastardize this because I don't even remember exactly what he was talking about, but something along the lines of like people trying to apply like finite rules to an infinite game. So say just like life. Like your marriage, training, it's not like a finite thing. You don't just want to do it for 12 weeks. It's like a lifestyle. You just keep going. You don't like win your marriage. You don't like win a healthy lifestyle. Like the objective of the infinite game is to just keep showing up. So regardless of how it feels, like through those undulations of having a good week, having a bad week, if the objective of the game is to just keep showing up, then you're gonna win eventually. You are winning because you're continuing.
Yeah, there is no winning eventually. You're actually just winning by doing.
Every day you show up, you're winning. So now I probably, if anyone else knows that concept, maybe I've interpreted that in my own way. But the way I think about it is, just keep showing up. And I've applied that to competitions as well, where leading into junior nationals, I knew I was like capable of totaling 800 for the first time. But leading in, I was like, you know what? It doesn't even matter. Like I could total 797 and a half. Because I'll hit 800 eventually. Like I don't need to hit it this competition. And removing that like pressure or whatever it is, if it's a 300 squat, you don't need to hit it right now. I know I'll hit it eventually. Or removing that like time constraint or pressure that you put on yourself, and just enjoy the long game. And then you continue winning, and then you're always having fun, and it's amazing.
Love that one. Love that one. The one I think you were getting at for me to say, I'll just touch on it quickly, is Goggins is a big advocate of just doing things that are shit. And that one thing he took, because I listened to it at a point where I was particularly stressed over a bunch of things, and college work just seemed like a wall too high to climb. Obviously not, but in the moment, everybody knows this feeling, where something that you know you can do, but it's just...
You're just overwhelmed.
You're just overwhelmed. And he was basically saying that things like worth doing are going to be shit. Like you don't need a hack. It doesn't need to be romanticized. You don't need to think of all the nice things that are going to come of it. It's just shit. It's like realistically, all the times I'm like slogging through the words of the interview again and again, or I have to go back because I read it wrong, and just over and over and over. It's like, it's shit. It doesn't need to be nice. You know, I just have to do it. Like, what am I going to say? Am I just going to tell my mom and dad, like, yeah, it was just too shit, I'm not doing it?
Let me build on that again. Another Hormozy one that I was listening to the other day was like, this is what hard feels like. You're taking it. I don't even care. I'm keep going. Right? This is what like hard feels like. This is what difficult feels like. If you're doing a task that is going to be difficult, this is what it feels like when you're in that moment of, oh, this is shit, but you need to do it. Yeah, because you're trying to get your degree. Like you're trying to do something that is not easy. This is why it's meant to
Sorry,
feel
that was
like
a good
this.
point. So you just caught me off guard.
It's
This is what hard fucking feels like.
let me rephrase it to difficult. The way he says, this is what hard feels like. But let me rephrase it for you and your child brain.
Yeah.
So you're doing a difficult task. This is what difficult feels like. It's meant to be difficult. Just keep going.
Yeah.
That's okay. You've reframed your expectations of the task then. It's not that you're going into it expecting it to be like a breeze. You know this is a difficult task. This is just what difficult feels like. Let me keep going.
Always use that on comp day with my lifters and myself. But my lifters is, this second attempt is actually going to feel really tough, like really tough. So, once our expectations are in line with reality, once you go out there and you're like, yeah, this was pretty tough. I'm walking it out. No, this is pretty heavy. Yeah, it's pretty fucking heavy. But the issue is when all we're thinking about is the third, everything beforehand needs to be easy, right? Because the third's going to be really hard. But then you take a hard second, you're like, fuck, how do I go up from that? So no, the second's going to be tough. The opener's going to feel pretty tough. The stronger you get.
Yeah,
I know you're still going to open light, but it's heavyweight, right? So
that would happen all the time in training. I had when I was younger, Adam Keane was like a mentor to me. He was a guy who'd competed internationally, and I'd be like 17 and I'd be taking like a heavy single, and I'd come out and be like, oh, that felt heavy, man. And he's like, yeah, because it's a heavy weight. Like it's meant to feel heavy. That's like 95% of your 1 rep max. It's meant to feel heavy, like. And that would be something that I'd also use for myself going into heavy singles now, say for the walkout of a squat. This is going to feel heavy on my back. Expect that, like frame that as what you know will be the case going into the set. So when you unrack it and it feels heavy, you're not going, oh shit, oh fuck. And then you're like, you feel like you're gonna miss. If you just know that going in, you're fine.
Yeah, nice.
All right.
What question do you want to start with?
How do you handle a setback or a poor performance? Now, we chose this one out of the questions. Now, just before this, I put up an anonymous questions box because the last time I put up just a regular questions box where you can see who's asking the question, I'd say I got like 5 times the amount of responses in the anonymous question box, and 90% of it is filth. Like it's just it's just absolutely vulgar.
It's all one person.
It's you. So I don't know what is up with you guys. There was some heinous stuff in there. So this one.
Man, I want to see, like, if you have something heinous to say it. I want to see who it is.
Who it is, like. Anyway, thank you for sending in those things, though. How do you handle a setback or a poor performance? That was a good one. Now, we chose this because this week, on my primary squat day,
week 4,
I would say I had probably the worst session that I've had in years.
Why?
Now, so let me frame it. I took like 270 or so for the squat single, but it took me forever to warm up to it because as soon as I took 70, like my very first warm up, I was getting this mad like pinching sensation in the front of my hips. Never had it before in my life. Really weird. The bar just felt so uncomfortable on my back. I couldn't get it to sit right. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really weird. Let me just keep going, okay? It doesn't matter that it feels awkward and uncomfortable. Just keep loading up the bar. We'll see. Each warm-up, it just started feeling more and more uncomfortable. And it's so unusual for my training. So I ended up taking a few warm-ups like multiple times just to see if I could, I don't know, get something to click to make it feel more natural. And it didn't. I went on to my back-offs then, and they were just feeling worse and worse and worse as each set went on. I had to drop the load behind what I did on week 2. That was frustrating. And I was thinking, okay, we talk about this kind of like all the time. What would I say to someone else? If I can remove myself from this situation, what would I say to someone else? So I was trying to think through that. I was trying to talk through that. And in my head, it felt like there was something within my control that I could like change within this session. In hindsight, I don't believe that was really the case. So I was getting this pinching sensation, and then I was getting like a weird nervy sensation like in my legs, like down sort of like the back of my legs, my hamstrings, when I was squatting. And that's just totally unusual, never happens. But the week before, I missed my secondary squat day because I was handling at a competition. So had to leave early in the morning, handling all day at the competition, late getting home. The next day, since I was handling all day the day before, had a backlog of work and programs and things like that to do. So I couldn't train that day either. It was the first time in forever that I'd missed a training session. So that's missing a large exposure to the movement within my training. And then having been sitting down a lot of the day for that Sunday, doing programs, things just felt weird around my hips. And I talked to you and I was saying, what is going on? What can I do? And you just told me, do nothing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change it. It's unusual circumstances. It's frustrating because your training is normally so predictable and you know how you feel and you can pretty much every week know that you're going to hit this weight the following week because my lifestyle is so kind of like routinized that I do the same things just every single week. This time, there was something very out of the ordinary that affected my training schedule. And then through that, my performance was affected. And we kind of just settled on, okay, there's nothing I really need to do. There were circumstances somewhat out of my control, somewhat in my control. Basically, the way that it played out, I didn't get to train that week before. Now, squat performance the following week suffered a little bit. What do we do now? We just get back to normal. And we just do all the regular things that I would do, get in enough food, do all my training sessions, get enough sleep, all those normal things, and guaranteed next week, my squat session will be totally fine. So that would be an example of how I handled particularly like poor performance or a setback within my training. Try zoom out, look at the macro, look at the things that are affecting the training performance itself. You probably won't need to make any drastic changes. Just get the train back on the tracks and do all the normal things that you do again.
Yeah. Just get the train back on the tracks. People always want to find a different track is the issue, as we used to.
Yeah.
And even, it is actually the first thought that comes to our mind. Like we're saying all this shit as if we don't face errors in thought. Like we always have fallacious thinking. It's just that we have a bank of experience to help us veer away from acting on the fallacies that we come up with in response to these things. Because of course, you feel emotional. Like that's why first thing I said there was week 4 as well, because that context I feel like matters as well. Yeah. When you're going into the end of the block, at the start of the block, you wanted something big, right? Because you've had huge momentum the last few blocks. So I imagine that's how I knew when the texts were coming through. I was like, man, like I'd say the biggest thing here, the sensations now were very real. I wasn't trying to take that away from you. It's more that like I don't know how to immediately fix those, but I do know what's going on context-wise, and I just needed you to just like move past the day, because as soon as you got through that day and just like kept training, and as shit as you might feel, it was like, oh yeah, now we're picking up momentum again. So.
And then you're fine.
Yeah,
and then it's only as much of a problem as you make it to a certain degree. Like if you are stressing about it and you let it take up a ton of mental energy and you're constantly like dwelling on it and you go home and you're like, fucking hell, I wanted to hit this number. And then you're probably going to feel miserable because it's bleeding over into all those other areas of your life. If you're able to just move on and then just go on to the next session and see how the next session feels, you could feel totally fine. So often that would happen where you have a really bad day and then you're like dwelling on it, and then the next week you actually feel totally fine again. You're, oh, why did I spend the last 6 days moping around and sulking and whinging and whining and so just move on. Just do all the things you know you have to do again and you'll be fine.
Easy.
Yeah. Actually, another one, I don't think I wrote it down, so I'm just going to say it while it's in my mind. Someone asked, how do you deal with missing out on a qualifying total? They missed out on a qualifying total by 5 kilos, and then they said now they have to wait a whole other year to try and make that again. I don't know what the qualifying total was for. Was it for a national team? Was it for
why do they have to wait a year?
To qualify for whatever the event that they were trying to qualify
for.
Oh,
as if it was like, okay, I don't know what it was.
To make like a
whatever the
national
comp is.
championship. You had to hit a certain total. They were 5 kilos under. Maybe, was there qualifying totals for junior nats? Could it have been from the January?
It could have well been junior nats, actually. Probably was.
Yeah.
But regardless, how'd you deal with that? What comes to mind? Because I feel like that is, you're allowed to be annoyed. You're allowed to be frustrated.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is, it's like, it's okay. Like maybe it just wasn't the time for you to be at that stage yet.
Yeah.
Like, again, if we think about that like infinite game of, you don't need to hit it this time. You can hit it next time. Now, I know you will have wanted to hit that, and that's where the problem can maybe come, is when you have like the idea of you making that already and you're imagining the scenarios of, okay, I make it to junior nationals and then I do this at junior nationals and then all the things that come along with that. If you've already, before you've hit the qualifying total, imagined the follow-on from that, now that reality is gone, so you've missed out. There's this like kind of discrepancy in what you wanted in your imagination and now what the reality is. So maybe if it's possible to, you can't go back in time, but reframe those expectations going into it, that you don't need to hit the qualifying total this time. Now we want to, but we just have to accept that we can't force progress. All we can do is try to facilitate it as best as possible with our actions, do all the things, and then whatever happens, whatever total you got, that's where you're at for the time being. And then we just continue to work on that, and then that total will continue to get higher over time. We can't force ourselves to reach a certain threshold just because we really want to. We can only try our best to continue to get better, and then wherever we end up will be kind of where we deserve to end up, given that time frame that we're in and the work that we could have put in. So yeah, I would say it is a difficult one because you had these ideas of what you wanted to achieve, and now you have to kind of reframe and take a step back from there. I would say it's kind of the same thing that I said about the bad training session. All you can do now is focus on getting the train back on the tracks and continuing to work.
It's like a real life application of the goal setting conversation we had a few episodes ago. It's difficult, but it's very difficult when you allow your happiness to become dependent on a goal that isn't fully in your control. Like, I know it feels like our comp day performance is in our control, but there's too many things affecting it. What is in our control is applying ourselves to the process, doing our best, and allowing your happiness to come from that is way more sustainable, because then no matter the outcome on the day, you're happy because you did your best. So it's difficult to hear in hindsight, but now going into your next competition, whether you beat the qualifying total by 30 kilos or don't hit it again, you've done your best to do so. We faced the same thing. I know Andrew seems like he's magical and he never has to worry about qualifying total. I do. You know, I need to hit certain things to do certain things. Everybody does. And if it didn't happen, sure, I'm going to be bummed. But sure, I'm going to be bummed out. But I, right now, am taking happiness from knowing that, geez, the last few weeks I've done my fucking best.
Yeah.
So.
And that I have actually faced that before for 2019 World Championships. I didn't qualify for that. And I was sickened by that because I was watching the competition and I would have I think I would have got on the podium, and missing out on that because I had all these ideas in my head before that I'm going to get to go to Worlds and I'm going to get on the podium, and then the reality was I wasn't getting to go do that. And that stung, but then that feeling of missing out on that was like the catalyst for me to work even harder. And then the following competition was European Championships like 6 months later, and then I did get on the podium for that because I got back to work. That's all you can do. Okay, now like it let it sting for a little bit, and then you have to move on, and all you can control is what's in the present moment. So control the present moment, put in the work that you need to do today, and keep going.
Can I ask the next one?
Yeah, what is the next one?
So, if you could win World Championships, but the other never competes internationally again, would you?
Do you want me to answer first?
Yeah, it's like what's the game, and it's like share or steal.
Yeah.
Do you want to be nice or do you want to take it all?
So I will answer for myself. And I used to be like hesitant to say this. I don't think being a world champion would significantly improve the quality of my life. I would like to be a world champion, but it's not even like a very strong like goal of mine. That's not something that I really concern myself with. It's not something I spend really any time thinking about. I don't have any crazy ambition to be a world champion. I don't think that would make me any happier than I am at the moment. Now, I used to be hesitant to say that because I think people would hear it and not understand necessarily where I'm coming from. But if I can try to give some sort of context, like I've got to a point where my like happiness and enjoyment and fulfillment is not dependent on outcomes anymore. And I'm glad about that because it used to be highly dependent on the outcome, but I had so many experiences where I fell short of those unrealistic like expectations that I had set for myself that I needed to find a new way to approach it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have continued in the sport. And now from that, I've learned to enjoy the process and enjoy just training and playing that infinite game that every time I show up and I train, I'm winning. Like I've already won. I'm already a world champion in my own brain just because I'm continuing to enjoy the process, just enjoy powerlifting, enjoy training. So I don't think being a world champion would be a crazy over the top like big deal for myself. So yeah, I would way rather enjoy the experiences of having you abroad with me at a competition, and we go come fucking 10th. But we're there making memories together at a competition, having fun, making connections with all these people around the world, continuing to grow my business and my brand and all those kind of other things. Because that would be one of the potential benefits of becoming a world champion. You can't overlook that. Like if you're a world champion, there's obviously other opportunities that come along with that, potentially more exposure. But that's not worth it to miss out on having you at those experiences with me, because that for me is way more fulfilling, and I would just take way more happiness and enjoyment from that than the selfish goal of me becoming a world champion. And that sounds like that's the real, like, you're only saying that because he's in front of you, but that is, if I can be as like honest as possible, that would be my thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, big time, big time. I think maybe the pros to cons list just is I have a clear winner of not taking the world championship.
Yeah.
Because even just getting close to that, going to worlds, like you said, is kind of most of the deal here. Yeah. Like, winning it would be incredible. I'm not downplaying that. That would be incredibly a happy moment, but then taking you away from, even if we didn't get to experience competitions together, it goes beyond that. It's actually like me taking that away from you does not doesn't justify the winning of world championships. So
I like that. That was a wholesome answer from the pair of us. Go us. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Right. We move on to the next one. This is a good one.
This is a really good one, and this was something that came up 3 times. Okay, so before we planned the podcast, Andrew and I had a call conversation about this, and then 2 people we know, Jack Brennan, Mark Stell, both asked us the same thing.
Yeah, and we actually, to add on, there was a 4th instance where I saw it on Alicia Quinn's story talking about this very same topic.
Yeah, and it's something that everybody can understand. Yeah. Everybody in some capacity, and it is essentially social life versus training. How do you balance your priorities?
Yeah, and what do you sacrifice in order to prioritize training, or how do you make that decision? What difficulties do you face making that decision?
This is tough, and I don't have a very good answer. I hope we're gonna maybe discuss something here and find some answers.
Framework.
Yeah, some framework. That's it. There is never going to be a black and white answer to this, I don't think, because sure, there's some times where you and I are like, fuck that. I'm not going out. I'm not drinking. I'm not seeing my friends. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z because this, and this, and that's fine. But that's temporary. It's contextual. It's running into a competition. It's when this and that happens. But that's not your whole life. And as I get older, 22, we're young, we're babies, but just as the years go by, and as I talk to people older than me, that's a big one actually, is the more I talk to people who've lived way more life than me, from every generation, the more daunting it seems to get to an age where you no longer have time to do things, or you no longer have experiences or opportunities available to you that we do now. And this is making a bigger idea of going out. I'm not just talking about going on the piss on a Saturday night. That's not just what I'm talking about. It's kind of just where's the line between sacrificing one thing for another? Because going out, drinking, losing sleep, or whatever it may be, can sacrifice the training, the performance. But then making sacrifices for performance can affect opportunities that we have now might not have when we're older, or might wish when we were older that we took. So how do we know what to choose when we're not older yet? We're not 65 yet. We can't look back and think, oh, when I was 22, I wish I did this. We don't know that. So how do we navigate that decision, that ultimatum?
So we had a conversation about this. We called to chat about it because for me specifically, I have 2 very close friends who are getting married, so they have their stag do's. So they're going away to different countries for 2-3 days. Everyone's there's a big piss up. It's all very fun. But both of these are going to be in the prep for World Championships. So one of them is going to be like 2.5 months out, and then one of them is like 1.5 months out. So I was talking to you going like, how do I balance this? Like, how do you decide what it is that you do go to and you don't go to? And what I've kind of settled on in this instance is like, okay, there's like a hierarchy of importance of like different events that you would go to. And for something like a stag do, that is, it's like a one-off occasion. It's a very, like, you'd hope it's a one-off occasion, they're not getting married too many times, but it's like it's a once-off. You're never going to be able to like recreate that specific event. And these are people who are very close friends of mine. I have now decided, even though it's in the lead up to World Championships, I don't think I would be willing to miss out on those things. Now, I have to expect and understand that that is going to affect my training. There's probably going to be some days, like I was saying here, where I couldn't train last weekend because I was handling. There's probably going to be that, except times a little bit more, because not only am I just going to be not training, but there's going to be a lot of drinking, probably not a lot of food, stuff like that. So that I'm just going to have to expect there's going to be some bumps in the road in that prep. I suppose maybe if I can expect that, I can start to plan for that as best I can. Maybe I can have some strategies around how much I'm going to drink. I don't go overboard. I have some strategies about making sure I get my calories in earlier in the day so I can enjoy myself later in that evening. Maybe I can kind of front load my training, make sure I get all the heavy work that I need to do done earlier in those weeks. And then if performance suffers for a week or so afterwards, that's fine, because then I just get to train back on the tracks and I do all the things I need to do again, and the following week will probably be totally fine. It's going to be like a minor speed bump where those things come up and then you get back in. Now, I think that's only okay because the majority of our life and our training is so kind of routinized and regimented, or whatever the words are, where 90% of the time we're on track and we're moving towards the large goal that we have. But I also have a goal in life that I want to spend time with my friends and family, and I want to enjoy those experiences. So it is difficult to try like quantify which one is more urgent at the time, and I don't think it's really possible. There is no black and white. There's no clear answer. There's going to be pros and cons to both of them. I think you just have to try look as far in the future as you possibly can and imagine what is going to be more important to me. If I were to come 2 places lower at World Championships, but I had the opportunity to make those memories and have those experiences with my friends, to me, that's probably worth it. If you're someone who is solely focused on becoming a world champion, and that is your like burning desire for your whole life, and you don't care about making memories, maybe for you, your priorities and values are a little bit different, and that's up to you to decide and try weigh up for yourself. I think there's not going to be a right or a wrong answer. Just pick one and then suffer the consequences. Like there's going to be an opportunity cost of the one that you don't opt for. So you can dwell on that and think, oh, what if? But just choose one and deal with it, and then just make the most of that situation as you go forward.
I suppose 2 things to add is you kind of need to just trial and error as well. So sometimes you need to just see what happens when you, like, am I able to go to this party or this event or do this activity with these people? It's always drinking in these questions, and I guess because that seems to have the biggest impact of any social activity that comes to mind. Let's just say it's like a holiday or a days where you don't train, or you do something else like a hike or something that might tire you out for the day after or something, right? Let's just, whatever it is, I'd hate to just drill on one point, but you kind of just have to fuck around and find out. You need to see like what happens when I, go out on the Friday and lift on the Sunday, or Saturday and lift on the Monday. You just have to find out. You don't know. Like you're saying, you just have to kind of take it on the chin. That like sometimes you are just going to have to go into the session and it be shit. The aligning expectations was a great one, where if you just take it down a notch, I wouldn't even say expect a shit session either, because I find that just pisses me off. It's like, oh, well, now I'm like beating myself up, like I shouldn't have done that. Well, look at me, how I'm going to have a shit session. Like people come into the gym like, oh, how are you? Oh, I was out on the weekend, so I don't know. It's like, shut up. Like just like
expect it neutral, go in with
neutral. Just like go into the session. Like obviously kind of talk about this where we're hoping for this amount of load to prepare us for next week or whatever. But like, just go in, look at the RPE on the sheet, and just like see what happens, right? More you do it, the more you'll find out, right? There are ways to minimize the impact of experiencing the social things on performance. I'm noticing as well, we're answering this fully in like, how do you sacrifice performance for the other things?
Yeah.
But like, because our bias is that performance is like the more important thing.
Yeah.
But that's us, right? Not everybody listening is going to have that. And even for us, maybe sometimes our life will go in and out of that. But for right now, it's like, you know, our short, medium, and long-term goals are kind of centered around performance, and they're big parts of our lives. Anyway, so what was I just saying? The expectations, but then, there's ways to minimize the impact it has on your performance and your training. Drinking less. This is something that I've tried myself. Is you can actually go to social events and not drink, or if you would like to have a drink, you can have a drink, or you can have two drinks. Yeah. The effect 2 drinks has on a 110 kilo guy is probably null. I would actually say, as in you could feel it in the immediate, but the effect the next day, as long as you don't tell yourself there's going to be an effect, is probably null. Like when you're having like 5,000 calories and you have like 2 vodkas, it's like, I don't really think there's going to be an impact on your performance. And if anything, I try to use this to reframe other people's thing is, as long as they don't go overboard and they're getting sick and they're drunk and they're feeling wrecked the next day and dehydrated and fatigued and all this, that they do happen. And sometimes you have to have those nights as well. But if you manage to just have like 2 or 3 drinks, if anything, oftentimes, and you keep your food good, your water good, you manage to sleep well, the benefit of having socialized and not having the dissonance of missing out on your friends and time with your friends could actually benefit training in the next few days. Good. So there's ways to minimize the damage.
I was going to say, and there's definitely been times where I've gone out and then gone to train the following day and been surprised at how good that I felt and the minimal impact that I had. Even last year, leading into Junior Nationals, Sheffield was like 3 weeks before that. Had a pretty heavy night. The night of Sheffield, where there was a lot of drinking, and then had an amazing competition 3 weeks later. So like, it's not that it has to come at this massive detriment to your performance. There, you can definitely fit them in, and then you just try to maximize the upside and then minimize the downside. And put these strategies in place. One thing that I found for myself is like Diarolite. So there's like a rehydration powder or like tablets you can get. Having one of those after a night out, so you like rehydrate. You're not waking up dehydrated and miserable and groggy and gross. It just makes the world of difference. Like, so if I remember drinking Diarolite, amazing, right?
Man,
easy.
I remember this is before I went to Chicago. So months ago, a few friends got together and Andrew was staying in mine because he lives pretty far away. And we had gotten pizza and Andrew was just fucking quiet. He was like, I'm ready to sleep. To make sure that, you know, I get enough sleep here. He was like, where's your Diarolite? I was like, I'll get it for you. I look over and he's like holding on to the counter, like getting the water into him. And then I see 2 packets of Diarolite. I'm like, bro, I don't know how big you think you are. You've been up here for a fucking rhinoceros to stay hydrated. And you're like, I know, had another one in the morning. Now look at him. And
I was totally fine the next morning, fresh as the daisy.
Yeah.
They can't stop me.
No. So that's the balance. It's
there's no right or wrong answer. You just pick one and then you just work with it. Try make the best of the situation.
As we talk about getting the train back in the tracks as well with like bad sessions or whatever, you could have bad sessions for no good reason. You know, you could literally no good reason. You could be eating, sleeping, drinking water, avoiding these social situations, and go into Monday and have a dog shit session. That's happened to me over and over and over again in my life, right? So sometimes it's just not that big a deal, right? As in, yes, we can fuss over the minutiae here, but also when you step back and just look at the bigger picture, which is our solution to, say, bad sessions or poor performances, is sometimes you can just do it and forget about it. Like, if it's worthwhile doing for you, just do it. If it impacts performance, it doesn't matter. Just step back, relax. You still have the rest of the year to train. So
you had quite a large-scale example of this when you went to Chicago.
Yeah, and prior to that, in the years running up to imagining a J1, it was always like, nah, man, I fucking wouldn't do a J1. Imagine the impact it would have on training and gains and performance and the rest of I just went, did it, forgot about it, put the train back in the tracks. Now it's like it didn't affect performance at all.
And now you have all these amazing experiences, memories that you're happy out.
Yeah.
I heard this again in another podcast, and it's somewhat unrelated, but some people are very much like dedicated to wanting to be the best though. That is not going to be the vast majority of people. It's like the MJ. Like he is probably, or Kobe. Like those are the people who would have sacrificed everything to be the very best. Okay, so they just put everything to the side. And the person was saying champions are broken. Like the people who are the very best are the ones who were just like willing to sacrifice the most. Like they
are missing out on all those things.
Yeah, and they get to that end point, but they're probably the people who are the most like mentally, can't think of the correct word to use there, but maybe not the happiest people, despite sacrificing everything and achieving this great feat, whether it's within their sport or it's within their business. They may not have the everything great going on in their lives.
Yeah.
So it's how important are those other things to you, basically.
Which one of us would run a faster 5K?
Honestly, I'll just give you this. Like, I'll just let you have this thought.
It's the body weight.
I was gonna say being heavier, like
yeah. If I put on a 10 kilo weighted vest, maybe we'd reach
we'd be even.
We'd finish the same time.
Yeah. Like that one is. I can't. I'm definitely making it out to be way worse than it actually is. Like I'd say we could do a 5K, fine. I
think it would be pretty tough, to be honest, on the lungs.
It would be tough. It's not gonna be easy, but like we would be able to do it. Like, yeah. Well.
It would be so funny, man. So funny.
You could make it miserable, or you could like Goggins it, and even though it sucks, you just.
Oh, the knees, man. Afterwards.
Oh yeah, it would be like it wouldn't be amazing, but I'd say we could do it. I think we're imagining that it would be worse than it is. Now, I don't want to come off that I'm saying like I could do it, no problem. I know it would be shit, but I'm just.
Of course.
I'm confident in my ability that I could like just embrace this shit. Like.
I definitely could.
Yeah.
But it would be hilariously shit.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it would be bad. Like.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be fun.
No.
And I wouldn't want to do it multiple times, but. Yeah.
When could we try that? What's the next question? When could we actually try that? Like after all the competitions this year?
Yeah, after Euros.
We like quickly drop like we were trying to like
let me just
speed
go
cut
mega
10 kilos.
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
Because I heard something, maybe I'm making this up, maybe this is entirely wrong, but like the forces of when you're running is like your body weight times fucking like 10 going through the ground each time. Now, until you've like trained that specifically and you build up like tolerance in those joints and your knees, your ankles, your stuff. If we tried to go 0 to 5K, we'd probably jack our shit up.
Yeah, I think we would.
Yeah.
This feeds into another question. Can I go for it?
Yep.
It was one from a friend of mine, Luke.
Yep.
Hybrid training. Okay. And to be fair, I'm seeing it more and more as well. I'm seeing the development of other sports. Do you ever see High Rocks?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Just more and more people doing that. And just more and more people who predominantly lift, be it bodybuilding or powerlifting, just doing something else. And then you also have people who always did multiple things. It's scary. Yeah. I get freaked out when people are extremely jacked, shredded, can run, and can do loads of other things.
It's like CrossFit athletes.
Yeah.
Like they're crazy.
They're crazy.
Yeah. Like the people who are at the top of CrossFit. Generally, people always make fun of CrossFit.
Yeah, but it's the most impressive feat.
By far, I would say. Now, like for general people, I don't think it's a great idea just because they're trying to be like these superhuman athletes.
Superhuman.
So the people like the CrossFit Games athletes who are all obviously pumped full of gear and they're like these.
Looks like Batman.
Yeah, freaks and their abs are like bigger than my biceps. Each abdominal muscle. Yeah, like they're absolutely nuts. That's very, very, very impressive. I've seen way more of it recently of like powerlifters who are say getting bored of powerlifting training, finding it a bit stale, introducing something new to keep it interesting. Like fair play too.
But here's the thing, is like, I don't know how manageable it is. There's two things. I don't know how beneficial and how manageable. And I feel like some people will disagree with me, but one, how beneficial is it to kind of half apply yourself to two different things? And maybe this is just me that always doubles down on everything I do, but I don't know if I would enjoy to have be like halfway into powerlifting and not really see many gains, and be halfway into running and not really be that good at running, or this sport, if I went back to football, kind of go to football, but then, have to not go to sessions because I just squatted, or, maybe not squat, or like squat like half as much, and all these things. It's like, I don't know how appealing that is to me, or how good you're going to get at any of them. And then secondly, how manageable it would be time-wise, financially, psychologically, mainly physically though. Maybe this is just me having, pessimistic expectations as to what I can recover from. But man, like we were joking about it there, like the knees after running a 5K. Like, I know you would adapt to doing things, and maybe we could start by just jogging 500 meters every day or something. But man, if I did all those things, like surely your risk of injury is going up tenfold, and the predictability is going down to negligible percentages.
There's going to have to be give and take. So like if you are increasing the amount of running or whatever it is that you're doing, something's going to have to come away from the powerlifting training that you're doing. Like there's 101 different sayings for it, like being the jack of all trades but master of none, and you've one ass, don't try ride two horses.
Whoa! That's a bit more like
it. That's a good one.
One ass, don't ride two horses. Buddy, can make that happen.
It's a good one, isn't it? Chasing two rabbits and stuff like that. So like for us, we are trying to be like as strong and jacked as possible. So like running, it's like a cool endeavor, and for other people, if that's what like lights your fire, awesome, go for it. But I don't think for us that's something that is like particularly appealing. Most people that I've seen go from like powerlifting into this hybrid training is when they've found like powerlifting training stale.
Yeah.
Now, I just don't find powerlifting training stale. I just enjoy powerlifting training quite a lot.
And we're not willing to sacrifice the pursuit of being as strong and jacked as possible. That's us right now, and at this point in our lives, that is the priority. So, I'm not willing to sacrifice that.
Yeah. Maybe down the line, if I've been doing it for another 10 years, I'm like, okay, maybe there's really diminishing returns here. I want to try to get good at something else. But I just feel like there's so many more gains that we can make within powerlifting that it's like, why would I? It just would never even cross my mind to.
Do you agree with your own self as well? Because some people might listen to that and be like, yeah, I want to be the jack of all trades. I want to be able to run this really fast 5K, lift and run straight after, and all these things. That's cool. If that's what you like to do, would you agree with yourself that you prefer to double down?
Yeah, I think so.
It's like, I don't like doing something a little bit.
I would say for myself, if I'm going to commit to like powerlifting, I want to get as good as possible at powerlifting, and I don't feel I'm there yet. So maybe for someone whose goal was to squat 200 kilos, and that was all they wanted to do in powerlifting, it's like, okay, I've ticked that box. Now I want to run a 5K as well, so I want to be able to do them both. For me, I want to squat 350, and I'm not there yet.
As much as your future will allow.
Yeah, so it just wouldn't, like, why would I? It just would never even come into my brain to look at those other avenues yet. But there's plenty of people who I like in the powerlifting realm who have gone down that avenue, and more power to them. If that's what makes you enjoy training, then carry on.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, and the CrossFit was a good example. But just anybody, when they are good at all these different things, it's just nuts, because I couldn't imagine getting up tomorrow and going on a run or doing a CrossFit session. It's my body. Yeah.
But that's like a marathon runner couldn't imagine trying to squat 280.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Do you have one you want to move to?
If my phone would unlock. Who's the best competitor you've shared the platform with?
Okay, so coming up when I was 93, there was Richmond Biden from France, and there's a very long list of people who are incredibly strong. I could list them all out, but he is still up. He's still number one as far as I'm concerned, right? So there's the answer there. And then now that I'm in the 105s, it has to be Antonio. So
my answer is the same as Antonio.
Yeah, he's insane.
Because we competed against each other 2019 sub-junior Euros. And we had like a little bit of a deadlift battle, and then he ended up pulling me by like 10 kilos. Yeah. But since then, like he's someone I would look up to a lot, and I just respect him quite a bit, just because we've come through the ranks together. Yeah. So he's someone who I don't know, he out-totaled me by 40 kilos at that competition. I've just been trying to stay in that as I'm trying to catch up with him as the years go on, and I think I'd need to check what his total is anyway. But
it's interesting that both of those guys are still Rico as well was also I think he won Worlds or came second with the same total in 2019. So they're still there at the top like 5 years later. So that's cool.
Yeah. And there's been other people who come along. There's amazing lifters come out of nowhere and they're really strong. But yeah, those just because of the length of time that they've been involved in our like worlds of powerlifting, it would be them.
Yeah.
All right. How do you eat more than 4,000 calories a day? I'll throw this one over to you because you have some experience with this lately.
Of course, both of us know how to eat more than 4,000 calories a day, but mine is just more recent.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm pretty sure we started the podcast when I was starting the bulk.
Yeah.
And it was so hopeful. And as time has gone on, I've just had more and more run-ins with difficulty of gaining. So, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, just life stress just peaked. And my bulk that I was doing just came to a halt. So I was like, right, I'll start tracking. And I did start tracking, and my body weight just continued to go down. And then over Christmas, I kind of found my footing with appetite again. I was like, I'll just double down. It'll be fine. I'll start to gain weight again. And my weight was a little bit more consistent. But then I got to 101 consistent morning weight and just wouldn't budge. And I thought I was eating as much as possible. The gags were frequent. I was going to bed stuffed, nearly trying not to get sick a lot of nights, right? So I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, how do I do this? I was talking to you, I was talking to Adam, my coach, and I was like, do I get a nutritionist? Do I get someone else? Because you're good with food. Adam knows his food. I know my food. So what is it? And I think Adam was like, man, what are you looking for a nutritionist to do for you that you can't do, that your close circle can't do? Just out of interest. You can if you want, but just what is it? I was like, true. I actually don't know. So I had to sit down, ideas from both yourself, from Adam, myself. These are things that if someone asked me, I feel like I could tell them, but it's just when it's yourself, I felt like, no, there's no more room in my day to eat more food. So I wasn't tracking, but I was coming in at probably shy of 4,000, I think, because my body weight wasn't moving and my maintenance tends to be around that upper 3s, right? So I was like, okay, how can I push above 4? And man, once I started tracking my food again, I had 5,300 calories yesterday, did I tell you that? Nearly 700 grams of carbs, okay? So I don't know where this came from. And I wasn't even, and the beauty is, I wasn't force feeding myself till I went to bed. I was actually finished eating before I went to bed. I think I had 2 chocolate chip pancakes, an orange, I think that was all I had to have. And I didn't even need to have it. This is the nice thing, right? Okay, so
what changes did you make?
What changes did I make? So first of all was I did go back to tracking food. Whether or not that was the catalyst to change, I don't know, but I will note that. Smoothies. This is a big one because you've been using them, okay? Coming up, smoothies to me were just another form of either low calorie / fruit machines, right? Cool, what's the big deal with having more fruit? It's not going to help me right now. That's what I used to think. Or shakes were disgusting milkshakes, it's like ice cream, peanut butter, Nutella.
Gross.
What was I actually going to do with this to make myself feel good? No. Me in the middle was your idea of just stuffing it with whole foods. Man. And okay, here's the biggest hack, right? So A was making a whole food smoothie. Right now it's 100 grams of oats, 100 grams of one frozen fruit, 100 grams of another. Yogurt, right? So like Greek yogurt or say a fruit flavored yogurt, bang, and then 300 mils of whole milk. It's 850 calories, right? The benefits: I'm getting up earlier to make it and eat it. I'm getting an extra meal. So say on the weekends where I'd normally have breakfast, and then I wouldn't eat till 4 because I was stuffed, and then I would train, and then I would eat after training. Now I have breakfast, then I have the smoothie in that interim because I couldn't have more whole food digestible rice, whatever, just chewing food. But you can drink that shit, man. And because it's sweet, you can drink it as well because of the berries, right? So that's the big thing. So making smoothies, getting up earlier to eat them, and fitting them in between meals. I think that's the biggest thing, to be honest. Whole milk and whole yogurt. I've never had those in my house. Do you know? I've never had, and I know from working in shops and shit, there's equal amounts in the fridge of skim milk and whole milk, and I just thought, who the fuck has whole milk? Man, good calories. When I put that in, and I put the yogurt in, I didn't think, because coming up, if I put in skim milk and a 0% yogurt, I was adding less than 100 calories or something. I was like,
and it's taking up a lot of space.
They're not calorie sources. Now, man, that thick, creamy whole milk, brother.
Oh,
So
yes, sir.
there's those, and then back on my honey roasted cashews and peanuts.
Excellent.
But even then, I haven't even been relying on them. I just like utilize them here and there. Like went to Electric yesterday, bought a bag of 100 grams. It was like 540 calories. Easy peasy, easy peasy. I think the big thing is actually, to be honest, I'm a bit of a late riser, and my routine with college is weird because some mornings I'm getting up early, and then some mornings I'm like, oh, I can have a lie-in, so I sleep really late, and then I'll like shower or I'll do something, and then all of a sudden it's like 12 o'clock when I'm eating. Whereas now I'm having like 2,000 calories by midday, by like 1 or 2. That's great.
Yeah.
So then it's very easy to get to 4.5, 5,000. So I've been sitting between 4.5 and 5,000.
I would say, yeah, just having a structure and a routine and planning out your meals, actually putting some conscious thought into, okay, I need to make sure that I'm getting this food in. Let me have a think around meals that I can make. Have a few go-to meals that you would have for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you can cycle through them that you know consistently, if I were to eat these things, then that's going to get me in the direction that I want to go. I heard a good concept, and it stuck in my mind because it sounds kind of shit, but from Connor, one of the coaches on Andrew's team, he said, eating like a dog. So you know the way a dog, you just like put the dog food in the bowl and it eats the same thing every single day. It doesn't think twice. It goes, yummy biscuits, there we go again. Right? It's the exact same thing, right? Absolute rotten shit in that bowl. So the concept of having that structure of the same meals that you will eat for, doesn't have to be every meal of the day. But for myself, it's the same general breakfast and lunch that I would have every day, but they're structured that I can change them so that there's still novelty when I'm getting sick of a particular like type of food, having it every single day. So like those smoothies and those shakes, you can change the ingredients, but the base is the same. Having all the oats, having the yogurt, having the milk, having whatever fruit goes in there, you can change it enough that it's still like a novel type of meal, but you're getting pretty much the exact same nutrients every single time. You don't need to think about it. You just get up and then you have those structured meals. I was saying to you recently that I don't even really have to track anymore because I know I just eat the exact same foods every single day. Even when I'm really busy, I end up just hitting my calories automatically because it's so structured into my daily routine. It's just a habit. It's not something I have to think about. I know in the morning at this time, I eat these foods. There's no like decision fatigue of, oh, what am I going to eat today? What do I have in the house? I know what I have in the house because I know when I do my food shop, because I know I need these foods in the house for me to be able to eat them, and then I eat them at that time and I have the food ready to go. I don't have to worry. I have it planned in advance of the food that I'm going to eat. So that is a good concept, eating like a dog, just being able to select meals that you can like customize and change, but the base of it remains the same. So for me, it's that breakfast and lunch, and then dinner will change the most. New dinner every day of the week, but there's probably 6 or 7 dinners that I would cycle through that are the same things. I know I'm getting in the calories I need to every day.
You have to make a high calorie routine.
Yeah.
So find foods that and meals that are high in calories. So saucy dishes are helpful. The smoothies we're talking about, high calorie snacks. You know, I'm loving chocolate chip pancakes. I'm loving the honey roasted nuts, right? Find things that you find easy to eat and make a routine. So get up earlier, like I was saying, fit smoothies between meals, because otherwise when you eat a big meal, I don't want to eat rice again, or I don't want to eat whatever it is for a few hours. High calorie routine, find foods that are high in calories that you like to eat more calories earlier in the day.
Yeah. I was actually chatting to a young guy at one of the competitions, and he was asking that. He's like, how do I get in more food? And I was like, what does a typical day of eating look like for you at the moment? And he was like, so I'll have like beef and rice for 3 meals a day.
Man.
And I was like,
how are you eating the second? How are you eating the second one, let alone the third?
I was like, I would hate eating if that's all I was eating every day.
Yeah.
So like, make it easy for yourself. Don't force yourself to stick to like some horrible routine and just try have like willpower to like get through it. Make the routine as easy as possible for you to stick to it. Don't try to come up with these routines that you can only kind of do on your best day when you have the most amount of motivation in the world. Pick the thing that you can do on your worst day, when you're the most stressed, when you're the most tired, you really don't feel like doing it. Find habits that you can still stick to on those days, and then you'll be totally fine. Because I think people often set these way too ambitious goals, and then like just try like gut it out and like try grin and bear to get through it, and then inevitably after a couple of weeks they can't do it, and then they're judging themselves because they couldn't stick to this unrealistic thing, and then it's this negative cycle of, oh well, trying to eat more food doesn't work for me. I've tried it before. just make it as easy as possible for yourself. Don't set these crazy ambitious targets that you're going to fall short of, and then you're going to judge yourself because you fell short of them. Make it easy for yourself.
We'll add just a tiny bit, is that Adam was like, man, have more fat. Adam knows historically that my fat macro breakdown is always really low. Man, there was days like when I was not eating a lot of food, as in years ago or whatever, when I was lighter, say if I was having like 3,000 calories or whatever, there's days I was having like 20 grams of fat.
Fuck.
Yeah. So I don't know how the fuck I even digested the food. Like, was it all just plain? I don't know. But now that I'm having so many calories, man, when there's 5,000 calories on the board, the fat can be plenty above 100. That's how it breaks down. Now, there's still a line. I don't love the idea of having a ton of fat. I'm not a nutritionist here. I don't even know if that's a big deal, right? But just, it doesn't have to be 100 grams, you know? When I'm eating like 1,500 more calories, I have to let
some of
that
that,
go,
because
right? So
that's what tastes nice.
that's what tastes nice,
Often
and it makes food easier to eat.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the easiest things I have, if anyone lives near Kerrigan's Butchers, they have these like pre-made stir fries, basically, in trays. So it's great when we have time to prep food ourselves, but then this is so easy. You take the wrapper off, put it in the oven for whatever, go take a shower, come back, ready. That thing is like 540 calories for the thing, and then I think 150 grams of basmati rice, another 500 calories. That's 1,000. I eat that shit even when I'm full.
Yeah.
I can eat that.
Yeah.
So find things that are ezy to eat.
Another note on this, somewhat unrelated.
Gonna keep going back and forth. Another note.
Yeah, the food topic. And when you said you were starting to track again, this is not necessarily related to like how to get in more food, but I heard this from somewhere else, and I really like it because it resonates with me a lot and my approach to training, and kind of ties into the earlier things we were talking about in the podcast, where when you're tracking, the quote that I heard is, the more things you measure, the more ways you can win, right? So the way this was being referred to was more in a business sense or in a, say, like a content sense. If you're putting up stuff on social media, the more metrics that you're measuring, say 20 things are going kind of meh, but one thing is going good, okay, perfect, that's a win that we got there that makes us feel good and keeps us moving in that positive direction.
Nice.
If you are tracking your food and you have that at the end of the day tracked out, that you hit all the food that you needed to hit, boom, that's a win. You go to bed at the end of that day going, yes, I know I'm moving in the right direction. Same thing if you're tracking your sleep and your stress management and your other things. If you have that laid out, like I have a sheet where I track my sleep, I track my stress, I track my steps, I track all my calories and the macronutrients. And when that thing is filled out at the end of a block, I'm looking at that going, oh my God, I'm on the wall. That for me is what I mean when I'm saying I'm putting in all the effort that I can put in. It's like a visual representation to myself that, yes, I'm doing what I need to do, rather than hoping that I'm gonna stumble in the right direction, like falling forward kind of, that I'll just happen to hit the calories that I need to hit and hope that it kind of takes care of itself if I loosely kind of track my body weight every now and again. When I have tracked it out explicitly, I can very clearly say, okay, perfect, I'm moving in the direction I know I need to move to. I'm getting those wins every single day as I'm hitting the calories that I need to hit. I'm getting the sleep that I need to get. And I feel so confident because I have so much evidence to back up that, yes, you're moving in the direction you need to. I heard another story or like an analogy of someone who was going to the Olympics, and they had like 4 years worth of calendars. Every time they did a training session, they put an X in the calendar of the day that they had. And then the Olympics rolls around and then they have whatever, a shit ton of calendars. There's 1,000 X's of all the training sessions that they've done. And they go, okay, I've done everything that I can do. I know I can rely on that training. I've worked as hard as I can work. Okay, let's go perform on the platform or whatever it is.
Nice.
So yes, I like that. The more ways the more ways that you measure, the more ways that you can win. So nice. I like that idea.
I like that as well. Yeah. On the food, should you eat different foods when you're cutting or bulking?
Yes, so that would tie into the eat like a dog thing that I was saying. I think it's just easiest if you have that routine and those habits within your eating, that you have that structure. Say, no matter the phase you're in, whether you're cutting, you're maintenance, or you're bulking, you can just customize those base meals to suit whatever the goal is that you're working towards. So say you're trying to bulk, but now you've hit a bit of a plateau and your body weight isn't moving in the direction you want anymore. Okay, just increase the serving size slightly of whatever you're having in that smoothie. Instead of having 100 grams of oats, now you have 120 grams of oats. So easy, you don't need to add anything new into your routine. It doesn't take this big change or commitment in your life. You have the same foods, you just change the serving size. If you're cutting now, Okay, maybe you're not having 100 grams anymore, you're having 80 grams. Okay, you've reduced the serving size, you're taking in less calories. It just makes the process so much easier rather than trying to stumble through every day. Or I find when people hate tracking, it's because their eating habits are so scattered that they're trying to track all these random bits and pieces, and they're eating random shit from the deli one day and then random stuff another day. And it is difficult and it's stressful to try, like, retrospectively gather all that information up. But that may be the sign of, okay, maybe if we can move our habits more in a routinized direction, it may be easy for you to track and move in the direction you want to. Now, there's 101 other strategies you can do if you're really against the idea of tracking. But yeah, I would say having those kind of structured and routine meals, that is the easiest way to continue to make progress.
Perfect. Okay. You asked that next question there?
Out of the two of you, who is the top and who is the bottom?
Look, guys, you know.
To be honest, I don't even know what that means.
Oh, you actually, like, bro. You actually, okay.
So is the bottom is the submissive person?
Yeah.
That's you, obviously.
What do you mean it's me, man? What do you mean it's me,
You're
man?
liar,
You just
man.
gave me the 5K.
Liar,
Just give me the 5K. Give me the cardio as well, buddy. You just fucking lie there, buddy.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just move swiftly on from that. That was one of the pieces of filth that actually made it in. There was plenty of ones that are not going to make it in. There's some heinous stuff. So asking questions about man yogurt and things like that. Like, that's not getting asked on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking, because it made us laugh off air, but on air, that's not.
We'll reply in the DMs.
With pictures. Anyway, how do you progress your secondary, tertiary, and
Quaternary.
quaternary days across the block? I don't have any quaternary days.
No.
How do you progress them across the block?
Okay. In my eyes,
Yeah.
for the most part, your primary days are driving your progress.
Yes, sir.
Your secondary days can drive a little bit of progress, maybe. Depends how your training's set up. Everybody's a little bit different. And then your tertiary days, when you start to go that low down, I feel like they're maybe maintaining skill and exposure and the benefits of getting an exposure. They're not necessarily driving gains.
Yeah.
Okay? So you don't really need to do anything with them, right? So I would just keep those at a very low RPE, and the progression might not need to be there as it would be on your primary and secondary days, or mainly your primary day. So what that might look like is taking, like, I think I took 130 yesterday on my tertiary day. If I'm beat up going into the next session, it could be 120. If I feel good again, it would just be 130. Keeping that RPE low, it's just a light exposure, because then when I go into my secondary day, I can manage the loads that I want to manage.
Yeah.
And then how do we progress the primary and secondary days? So as we've spoke about before, the biggest thing I'm looking to do is build momentum and push me into that week 4 to be as prepared to take the most amount of load I can, given the parameters I'm given. So let's say this block I have sets of 3, and it will probably finish up around an RPE 8. So I'm thinking, how do I push myself towards the RPE 8? How do I go in that I'm not too tired, but I have lifted enough weight to be prepared, right? So there's you're just counterbalancing fatigue with preparedness. Start off light. This week I took like 225 on squat, say. Mm-hmm. I know I'm going to finish considerably heavier at the end of the block, but I didn't need to take anything heavier. It was enough to prepare me, enough to drop fatigue from the last block. This is how I'm doing it, right? So I'm adding just enough load to prepare me for the week after to prepare me for the final week. The secondary day is going to be considerably lighter. It'll probably be a similar load to the back downs on that day. Yep. So after 225, I took like 180. Okay, so the secondary day this week will probably be 180 for sets of 5, some give or take. If I feel rough, I'll pull it back. The RPE is going to be way lower than the primary squat day, the main exposure on that day. So even though that wasn't really hard, it was still like, it was like an RPE 6 of heavier weights. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But then my secondary day will be like RPE 5 to 6, but lighter.
Yeah.
That's weird, and we can get into that.
RPE 5 to 6 secondary. I think that's actually another question that I would love to.
That's a good one. It is to actually just note what the intent is behind the day. Yep. Because the RPE, sure, you could just not label it and then just see what happens, and that's fine. And that is useful sometimes. But then when there's a difference between your primary and secondary intent, then the RPE changes slightly, how you perceive the RPE. So anyway, your primary, I progress like that. The secondary, I'm progressing as it's like a backseat driver. It's like, it's not actually driving the car, but it can help a little bit. So I'm never eliciting a lot of fatigue with the secondary day, but it can still progress. But I'm just not too bothered about it exactly. So I'll always keep the RPE very low. The load will probably increase across the block. Maybe bench press specifically, I'll increase it across the block because I can just handle a little bit more like that. But it still will never be so heavy that it impacts the primary day.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would honestly agree everything you said. It would be the exact same in my training. Primary days are driving the majority of the progress. Secondary days for lower body, because I only squat and deadlift twice, sometimes only deadlift once. They are kind of just to stay ticking over. Tertiary bench, I bench 3 times a week. Tertiary bench just stays flat for me across the block. I never bench more than 120 on that day. I just come in, stay moving just to set me up for my secondary day later in the week. Yeah, secondary bench may go a little bit heavier just because it's easier to recover from, but it's, yeah, backseat driver was a good way to describe it. Yeah, not too fussed about trying to force loads on secondary days. That was one of the biggest lessons that I learned over the last couple of years, is to stop trying to do that, to allow my primary day to be more predictable, because a problem I would run into was I would have my secondary day program that might be on squat set of 4 and it's at RPE 6 to 7. And in my brain, I'm going, okay, a set of 4 that only has 3 or 4 reps left in reserve, that's fucking heavy. Like if I only have 3 or 4 more reps on that set of 4, that's a heavy set. Yeah. And I'd be killing myself on those secondary days. And then it would screw my primary day and up and down, up and down, up and down. So stopping to do that. Now, say for example on my squat, I squat over 300 kilos. I very rarely, other than the end of a competition prep, would squat above 200 on my secondary day. So it's generally between 170 and 200 for my secondary squats. So quite a bit lighter than what I could try to force. I used to be trying to squat like 230, 240 on those secondary days way back when. And yeah, so primary days, try to push them. Secondary, depending on your program, maybe you can push them a little bit more kind of backseat driver just to facilitate that exposure again so you still feel primed. Some people call it primer sessions, stuff like that. Tertiary is literally just like a technique exposure, just so you have an extra, not just stay in the groove. Like,
pretty much.
So yeah, but that brings us on to another question that might be later down the list, but it was, how do you deal with when the bar speed doesn't match the RPE?
That was it. Yeah.
So I might take the question off in a slightly different route, but what should you do when the bar speed doesn't match the RPE? I would say RPE is like rate of perceived exertion, like how heavy does it feel? I would take the majority of the input from that as opposed to the bar speed. If it feels, because the question was like when it feels incredibly heavy but it looks okay. If it feels incredibly heavy,
then it's probably,
it's probably pretty heavy, right? Yeah. You're probably, don't push it too much, right? Just take that as your kind of indicator of how difficult the set was. Now, there's times where you may not feel amazing and like you don't feel super explosive and powerful, but the weights are moving well. That's okay. You can continue to like go up and load, and I've had those days where I didn't necessarily feel the absolute best, but I knew I could continue like pushing. So yeah, bit of a gray area there. Not sure how to answer that one specifically. I would say just lean into how it felt more so. I think a lot of people as well can fall into the trap, and I would used to do it, is like judging a lift, like the bar speed of a lift, and not acknowledging the point that was like the hardest. So say for a deadlift, it might be really hard off the floor, but as soon as you break the floor, it like zips up. But like the point where you will fail is that hardest point, that sticking point. You have to judge the difficulty of the lift by the sticking point, because that's the point where you're not going to get it past. Like, it doesn't matter if your lockout was real snappy, because if you had 2.5 kilos more, you're not even breaking it off the ground. So you need to judge the difficulty by that. If it feels real heavy off the floor, then brother, it's probably really heavy off the floor. You need to acknowledge that. Then what I wanted to try bring the topic onto was that experience that I would have on those secondary days, being programmed a 6 or a 7 and trying to think, okay, that's 3 or 4 reps in reserve, because that's what RPE is, right? Yeah, it's the rate of perceived exertion. How hard did you think it was?
Yeah.
For me, I don't use RPE like those reps and reserve charts. I don't use that
really
at
moved
all.
away from that.
Yeah.
As in the perception, as in when you're actually using RPE,
Yeah.
an RPE 6 is not
For reps
RAR.
and reserve.
No.
At all. I do not correlate to the reps and reserve whatsoever. Doesn't even come into my mind. For me, the general kind of programming that I would work within is kind of like a 5 sometimes, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Never really programmed anything higher than an 8. But for us, 5, super chill. Deload weight doesn't even register on the scale, okay? Very easy. 6, chill. Easy, right? 7, medium difficulty. You know you're working a little bit, but it's not super hard. 8, hard. That's literally how I will judge my sets. Was that super chill? Was that kind of chill? Was that like a little bit difficult? Or was that a hard set?
And then 9 that was really hard.
Yeah.
That was really hard. Like you could not do that if you were tired.
Yeah.
10 is like
Just
that
max.
could not
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah.
They're usually scales to decide on how much you overshot. But,
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say not trying to stick the RPE to like those reps in reserve. I now just take it
Definitely,
as like a perceived level of difficulty, and that's all I run by. I haven't used like that reps in reserve kind of thought process in years, I would say. But I was
it's gone.
hesitant to bring it up initially as well, like to start talking about that, because I felt like it was kind of a bit of an out there thing to do, to not judge RPE that way, because it's like against the grain of that's what RPE is, like that's what you're told it is. But kind of in the flex system, it kind of made it a bit easier, because we all know that RPE 8 is a flex 8, and you can kind of sometimes you can push that bad boy kind of hard. Like you can, that's not going to be 2 reps in reserve. Like you're gonna push it a bit.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. On a secondary day, you know the intent is not.
You might get 10 more reps.
You're not trying to
if you
fucking
really went for
grind
it.
yourself into the ground on a secondary day. So it might be programmed 6 to 7, but you know it's a 6 to 7 on a secondary day. Chill.
Yeah, it's a chill.
Yeah, that's a chill
Yeah.
secondary day.
Yeah.
6. All right. So if you were to push reps in reserve all the way to failure, then you had 8 reps left, 9 reps left, 10 reps left, but you did exactly what you needed to do. So yeah, not using RPE the way that it's like conventionally is.
Interesting. I haven't thought about the relationship between RIR and RPE in a while, but I definitely
Don't.
I actually then wonder how I'd even program RIR. Like that'd be, I'd be closer to doing that on accessories, because you are pushing them to 9 or 10, and so you could say 1 or 2 RIR, but like I would never be
So that's what I was gonna say. So not using RPE the way that it's normally used on competition lifts goes out the window on accessories. If I'm saying 9, 10 on an accessory, that's a failure, baby. That's like 1 rep left.
Oh, yeah.
You're pushing those hard like that.
1 rep left, man. I'm talking when I'm doing
Force
side raises.
reps,
I'm like,
fucking-
I'm literally like,
What I'm doing, actually, I'm glad you brought up side
Yes,
raises.
hit
Oh
me,
my
hit
God.
me.
So what I'm doing now with side raises is the machine that has like just 2 pads either side of your like elbows, and you go there. Because I could never get like dumbbell to feel good for lateral raises. I could never get the cable to feel good for lateral raises. Could never find a lateral raise movement that I liked. I always felt real crunchy in my shoulders. Never ever came away with a pump. Never ever came away with any sort of sense of fatigue or that my delts had worked. Just felt like crunchy and grindy up in my shoulder joint. Never liked it. Now there's this machine. I made a technique change that I'm going to talk about in a second. But this machine, I will literally, so you're just going like that as high as you can go.
Yeah.
I will go until I can't actually move my arms away from my side anymore. And I'm like stuck in the machine. And then I have to try waddle back out. So yeah, that is like the level of difficulty. Or training with friends, where you're doing like forced reps at the end. You're doing Meyer reps. You're doing length and partials. That's another very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Length and partials. Oh,
it makes me smile.
Get
buddy.
on the length
It's like
and
when someone
partials,
says,
baby.
do you want to get ice cream? It's like, do I want to do some length and partials? Yes, I do.
Oh, so yeah, pushing accessories hard. I want to find more ways to program those for my lifters. I just think it's a little bit harder when you don't see them as much. So getting them to record accessory lifts, I don't know. Our storage is full enough when I have to record your bicep curls, so I don't know. I'm going to figure out a way that I can program that though, because I like that a lot. Anyway, the lateral delt thing that I changed was, if you're always told to like have your like pinky up, right, and your thumb down when you're doing like lateral raise, like pouring the jug or whatever it is, like that kind of shit, right? Even when I do that with no weight, that feels awful on my shoulders. That just feels so crunchy. That just like is sore. Just doing that is sore. What I stopped doing, I just turn my thumb up. Oh my God, man. There's so much more range of motion in my shoulders. I get way better delt pump. I actually have been working my delts now. I come away and like, I've seen blood flow going into my delt for the first time in 8 years of training. I'm like, my shoulders are actually growing. In the last 4 weeks of doing that, I've seen more shoulder growth than I have in 8 years. Trying to do these fucking pinky up to the sky bullshit things, right? So just putting my thumbs up. Oh my God, it's been a game changer.
This speaks to, actually the next question was, how can powerlifters learn from bodybuilders training and nutrition? Okay, so on the training side, this speaks to the idea that how something feels trumps how it might sound. Now, there's a line to this, I know, and you know, every exercise, every situation will require an explanation on that. Like, it's not that's probably too broad of a statement I just said. But for the most part, if you prefer putting your thumbs up to having your hands, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
If you are getting the required or the
achieving the desired
stimulus
outcome
that we want,
yeah.
Go with it. Like that's been another thing for myself within powerlifting as well. It goes back to the RPE thing. Kind of learning how to follow the rules so you know when to break the rules.
Yeah.
So you know, okay, it's not really going to make a difference if I change this thing because I'm getting the desired outcome in a way that makes sense to me and I can kind of stick to.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then like kind of on that broader topic to bring it back to what can powerlifters learn from bodybuilders, I would say a shit ton of my philosophy. And then my philosophy is obviously inspired through the training that I've done with Joey for years, would be adopted from bodybuilders and taking lessons from bodybuilders. And kind of our philosophy is very basic. There's more things to it, but like just building bigger muscles, and then when you have bigger muscles, just getting to do the competition lifts specifically and expressing strength on those lifts, and then you're going to be stronger. So a lot of my training, I've been trying to take ideas or learn from the bodybuilding world. In the gym that I'm in now, there's way more bodybuilders. It's a tiny like powerlifting area, and then there's 2 floors of every bodybuilding machine that you could possibly imagine, and there's a ton of just mega jacked bodybuilders who train there. And I was training in just like a regular commercial gym before with like 14-year-old school kids who were coming in afterwards, and the difference from being able to like just be around the people who train very, very seriously and watching what they're doing and trying to adopt some of that for myself has been a game changer for my training. So like specific things, say when you're approaching your accessory work, actually training them intensely. Oh my God. And then I'll see the like powerlifters doing their accessories and they're just swinging through bicep curls like this. And then they're probably 30 reps in reserve. And then they go, oh yeah, that's good. Perfect. Right? Actually training like to failure. And honestly, I didn't even have like a frame of reference for how difficult that was until seeing these people and then going through it. You're like, oh my God, I was tapping out like 10 reps ago. And now I can push like this much further.
I texted you yesterday. I was doing tricep extensions and the pump was just right. You know, some days they don't really feel great. You just get through them to desired intensity and it's fine. Yesterday, the pump, man.
Because you're eating 5,000 calories.
Because I'm eating so many calories.
Yeah.
It was like, I was on my last set and I was doing them and I started to like zone out. I was like in another world.
You're
and
calming
then
in the gym.
I was like calming.
The
Man, I was doing length and partials for about 5 reps. I nearly got sick. And then, like, as in, this is tricep extensions. Like, how taxing is this on your central nervous system? It's just your tricep, right? Man. Afterwards, I was like walking over to the bench, arms like puffed out to triceps, and I texted you at to sit down. I was going to get sick. I was nauseous. Like my whole body was affected by the pump of the tricep extensions because that's how hard you should be training them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about length and partials because it's something we've been gooing over, right? So, man, length and partials. We've seen something. Was it Jeff Nippard posted about it a while ago?
Yeah, Jeff.
And
There's another guy, Milo. Some guy did a lot of research into it.
Popped up, right? And it was basically that the research was showing that doing reps in the lengthened range and not an entire rep was booming muscle growth, right? And across a bunch of conditions and studies, right? So essentially it is, imagine the most lengthened part of the lift. So for a lat pull down, easiest to describe is when your hands are all the way above your head. When your lat is fully stretched, your back muscles are fully lengthened. And then it is a partial in that range. So normally you're pulling the bar as close to your chest as you can, whatever that looks like for you. It's bringing your humerus down so that all your back musculature is contracting and shortening. But it's not shortening them all the way, right? And how we've applied this is typically when I'm approaching failure, quote unquote, or what I thought.
When you can't get down to your chest
And it's kind of, I feel like it's very like PT-esque. Is like, okay, once your form starts to break down, you've hit failure.
Stop.
It's like, fuck that now. It's like, I've started training to the point that if someone came into the gym for the first time and saw me and all they'd watch was YouTube PT videos, they'd be like, what gym have I joined? This guy's no idea what he's doing. And they're like, and you're like grunting and shit, I'm sweating, I'm really getting sick, I'm burping and shit, nearly about to pass out. You're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You know your tricep pushes your arm all the way down, I'm like, right? Man. But this is how you get big. This is how you get big. So think about it though, right? And here's how I've explained it is, my tricep can no longer push all the way down. It can no longer extend my elbow fully. But it can still bring me down 70% of the way. So there's still muscle that hasn't gone to failure here. So bring me down 70% of the way. And then it can still bring me down 50. And I can do that for a few reps. And then 10. And then here's a new one. Here's a new one, right? And this is actually, you started this with me and then you mentioned it the other day, a study, is even when I can no longer move the bar, right? And I can only apply force, but the bar is winning, right? That lengthened range, that fully lengthened range, you brought up a study where there was 2 groups. I think they were like recreational exercise lifters, whatever. So we're not talking about fully trained individuals. How applicable this study is, I don't know exactly. But the idea is, the concept is that they had people do loaded stretches in one condition, and then another group did like a normal training program. They both gained the same amount of muscle, right?
So just to jump in, these people were literally just being loaded in a position, like just, so they were being stretched with whatever amount of like kilos, their pecs were being like pulled apart for say 15 minutes. I think that's what it was in the study. It elicited the same amount of, like, when they scanned them again, they had the same amount of muscle growth as the people who were training. These motherfuckers just sat here like this. Now, obviously, again, it's not in fully trained individuals.
We're not saying to go in and just put the bar on your chest and just sit there and there's your bench press gains. But when you're doing your tricep pushdowns and you've gone to, let's say yesterday I had 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 15, right? So on my last set, I think I only got 9 full reps, okay? And then I think I did like maybe 70%, 50%, 40%, 40%, 40%. 10%, and then I could not move the bar anymore. My triceps felt like they were about to fucking pop off my arm, but you're just there and you're trying to push that length and range. Do it. Do it. If you're listening to this, do that shit and let me know you did not have the best pump of your life.
And then even beyond that, say if you're fortunate enough to have training partners or you're doing something like single arm, forced reps, then you can't go anymore, and then you use your other hand, push it down, and then you control that eccentric. So you may not be strong enough to do even 10% of the concentric anymore, but you help yourself to get that onto the eccentric. Oh my God, and you bang out 5 more reps there.
They make you cry. They would actually make it. You know, when you come out and you're like, oh.
How are you not going to get jacked out your brains when you're doing that? Man, I had the tiniest arms for years because I was dicking around and I wasn't training properly. And now I've had like fucking exponential growth because I'm actually training properly from watching all these other people and then trying to learn from bodybuilders. Like, you see Mike Israel when he's like training legs and he's vomiting and stuff. Like, right, that's what I'm looking for in these accessories. And it is so fun. It is
very fun.
So fun. I love it.
I think accessories are not enjoyable because people aren't pushing them hard. So they're not getting a lot out of them, and they're just passing time by lifting weight. Man, passing time under stress is not fun. Right? But actively looking to make your body grow against the stimulus is fun.
And then you see the result from that, and then it's even more fun, and then you push them even harder, and then it's like a positive feedback loop. So, come on, learn from the bodybuilders, guys.
Learn from the bodybuilders. Us.
Because that's what I'm saying though. Like, imagine another 5 years of doing this now. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna be so jacked.
Man, I can't believe there was a time. There was a time that I didn't do any tricep extensions because I was benching so many times a week. This was my explanation, that my elbows would be sore because often they get sore anyway just from benching, so I'm doing too much already. I was just pushing too hard, bro. I was just pushing my bench too hard, so obviously I couldn't handle any stress in my elbows. Whereas if I just dial back the stress on bench press, added in the stress, oh, my triceps would be so big right now.
And they're already jacked, so imagine where they'll be in another
few years.
Too easy. Right, there's a lot of questions still to like go through. So I'll just jump through them a little bit.
Yeah.
This is another good one. How has coaching affected us as lifters? So like through the process of coaching, have we learned any lessons that we've then applied to ourselves as an athlete?
Does anything come to your mind for that?
I would say for myself, just going through more experiences with other people where they face adversity. And it's so much clearer from that slightly removed position of what the right call is, that you're just a little bit too fatigued. We just pushed a little bit too hard, and that's why we feel run down and not as strong. So seeing that in other people, being able to identify that has made it far easier for myself to identify it and go, okay, what would I say to someone else? Okay, just say it to myself, and then it's totally fine. So yeah, I would say just having a much broader like reach of other people's training, that now I can see those things happening over and over and over and over and over again. You just gain a better understanding of the training process. So yeah, I would say that.
I think it is that. It's just an extension of what we know about our own training. And it's like the biggest one, the primary one, is the principle of just going lighter and stop overshooting the RPE that we have. So I find myself saying it pretty consistently to my lifters in the nicest way possible.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you're going too heavy. And so I can say to myself now, it's like, man, you're just going too heavy. Or like, go lighter. There's no harm in going lighter, so go lighter.
Yeah.
Bench things that you think are too light. It's okay. That's it.
Yeah. I would say that's just the biggest one.
Biggest powerlifting ick. But I just want to shoot right to you and an ick you've expressed recently to me. Because I think, I hope everyone has experienced seeing this ick happen and you're not the perpetrator.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, first of all, I want to just preface, whenever I see these questions, I don't want to go into it too much, because I try to be a pretty tolerable person. So I try not to get the ick about stuff. So if I see someone doing something that in general doesn't align with me or what I would do, I'm just whatever, live and let live. I try not to get the ick. I actively try not to get the ick from things.
I get that.
I just let people do the thing.
Me too.
But this fucking thing, right? This gives me the ick, right? So often I've seen this over the last month or so training in this gym. People going to the toilet, right, in the gym, and just walking straight back out onto the gym floor. Because here, in this gym, there's the toilets, the cubicles, and the sinks are outside. So I'll be washing my hands, and I'll see someone come out of the stall after doing whatever they're doing in there, and just walk straight out onto the gym floor. What are you doing, man? Even worse, sometimes they'll do that. They'll go to walk past me, then realize, oh no, I probably shouldn't do that. Let me turn the tap on and pretend to put my hand under the tap and wash my hand. Bro, you put the tap on and you're pretending to wash your hands. Just fucking wash your hands.
That's an extreme. There's a reason. They have a hatred towards washing their hands. It's not just, at that stage, it's like they're hydrophobic. They actually just don't want.
And I'm not even a germaphobe or anything, but I'm just
bro, just wiped his fucking ass.
It's common decency. We're all touching the same fucking bars, and you're there with your shitty fingers.
You're watching him to make sure you don't use the same equipment.
Bro, what? And this happens every single training session. What is wrong with it? Wash your hands. Literally just wash your. It takes 10 seconds. Oh, anyway, so that's an ick I get every time I see it. I almost want to say it to the person, are you gonna wash your hands? What the fuck? Anyway.
I work in the gym now. I'm threading the line of asking people.
Yeah.
Yo. I see you flush the toilet. It smells like shit. Smells like shit. You saw me here, and you kind of lingered for a bit to make sure I went first. So.
Are you gonna fucking wash your hands?
You gonna wash those shitty fingers, or you're just gonna spread E. coli everywhere? Sick. I feel like that's actually something I could do as well.
Yeah.
If someone comes out of the cubicle and I'm there the whole time they haven't washed their hands, they're just oh, you wash your hands just after using the toilet. It's like I work in a creche. It's have we washed our hands?
That's shocking that even has to be brought up.
Horrendous.
And there's going to be someone listening who's going, I have done.
I'm the perpetrator.
Yeah, I'm the perpetrator.
And they hold their hands up and there's shit under their nails.
Yeah. And I see you. Yeah, I see you, right? This person who hasn't washed their hands, I see you. Oh, fuck's sake.
Rotten.
Yeah. Do you have any gym icks or powerlifting icks or?
People not putting their stuff away. I think it's
Yeah.
now working the gym.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, people will like have like tissue to like wipe down the bench. Tissue just on the floor.
Yeah.
It's like, why? What? Like, put it in the bin. What? You just
what?
threw it on the floor. What was going on in your head? You're like, oh yeah, the floor.
yeah.
People not putting their stuff away, like using full pieces of equipment or like a setup, like barbell plates, and just like leaving it on there. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, do you have dinner at home? Just like leave the plate on the table. Your kitchen table must be like stacked to the ceiling.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this is not gym related at all, but this is one that I fucking hate.
Oh.
Is people who leave a trolley in a car parking space
yeah.
in the shops. Oh my God, like let alone not just putting it back where the trolleys are meant to go, right? But leaving it in a car parking
So
space
someone can't park.
where someone can't park there now. I can't stand that. If you are someone who leaves the trolley in a car parking space, never talk to me. If, like, unfollow me, block me, I don't care. I never want to speak to you if you're someone who leaves the trolley in the car parking space.
There's gonna be people like posting the trolley left and tagging us with the trolley just in the
man.
fucking.
Yeah. Dodge that. Right, well, we touch on the last one. This is a big one. Yeah, because there's still loads of questions that we will get to
Yeah, we'll
in
have
a
a lot.
follow-up one.
Yeah.
But there's one that's particularly relevant at the moment, so we might
Yes.
as well just throw our fucking ring in the hat and just make the most of the clout.
You go.
So it's about, we talked about it a little bit. I'll just kind of preface the situation where there's a coach, Marcellus Swolfesser, who, I don't know if he just made a post about it, he made like a story, but as far as I know, he just posted something along the lines of, here are some like good powerlifting coaches that I recommend. And there was a list of 10 people, and they were all men. So then another coach, a female coach, made a post about it. It was like a 10-slide carousel about sexism in powerlifting and how this guy is a horrible person. Sorry, there's some big distractions going on in the gym over here.
Tiny distractions.
Tiny, very tiny distraction. About this big the distraction is. Right. So anyway, I was trying to get through that, but there was nonsense going on. Right. A female coach then made a reply to Marcellus saying, here's some coaches I recommend, saying this is sexist because there's no female coaches in there. She then made a post that recommended a load of female coaches and so on. Now, initially we were like, probably won't even bring it up. Like, it's not something that we really will talk about or want to talk about, because it's one where, I don't know, you get cancelled for saying anything these days. He got cancelled for saying, here's 10 coaches I recommend that were just kind of his friends. So what do you make of this whole situation?
I actually didn't even think we were going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Yeah.
I think it is good to talk about sexism, cases of sexism, even the broader systemic sexism that females face.
Yeah.
It's good. Cancelling Marcellus, he didn't have sexist intent. And even if you believe that his posting of 10 male coaches and no female coaches was as a result of systemic sexism, you don't need to berate. That's not on Marcellus at all. I think he was just posting a few coaches that he recommended. He did not sit down and think, make sure there's no women on this list. I really, really doubt that.
And I think if you asked Marcellus, what are some great female coaches?
Here's another 10.
I
don't know, but I think making someone out to be prejudiced in a way that is really harmful to his business as well. I think that's it's not only unfair, it's wrong, I think.
I'll actually read out the caption, because I didn't have a strong opinion on this at all, and we probably weren't going to talk about it until I read the caption, and then I was like, yikes. So, the caption...
Because it was a personal attack, this is what we're prefacing here.
That it's not...
She wasn't just talking about sexism.
Because that's what I think we would agree
Marcellus.
with, is the overall topic of sexism and giving a platform for female coaches. Totally on board with. Absolutely, if you make the post about, here's the amazing female coaches that are out there, 100%.
Yeah.
Amazing, all for it, more power to you. But
it's two separate things
The
here.
caption of this post was, politeness should never be extended to people who do harm. It's harmful to perpetuate sexism, and I will not tolerate it. strength sports have been a boys' club for a very long time. I'm so over mediocre dudes taking up so much space while I watch deeply accomplished women struggle to find their place, including myself. Enough. So that is, okay, she obviously has very strong opinions and views on gender inequality and stuff like that. I think because of that, because maybe this topic takes up a lot of space, she obviously feels very strongly about it, feels like she's been hard done by and kind of isn't getting her kind of fair shake in the coaching world. Because she has that layer of perception, she has seen something that maybe wasn't necessarily there in Marcellus's post. So there was a really good analogy that I heard that was kind of, we see the things we want to see. That was the essential point of this analogy, where if I told you to spot all the red things around this room, you're going to start noticing all these different things that are around here. And okay, now you've clocked them, you're now more aware of these things. But what will also happen is we'll start to bend reality a little bit to align with our beliefs then. So you might see something that's a little bit orange and start calling that red just to back up that belief that you had that you needed to see red stuff. So you might, because of the lens that you're looking at things through, if you are feeling, and it's a very large part of your life that you feel that you've been treated unfairly, maybe seeing something just like a, I would say, fairly innocent post from Marcellus of here's 10 people I know, they happen to be all guys, seeing that, feeling that you have been hard done by and bending that a little bit to fit that overall narrative of sexism and the whole topic, good, all for it, but I just think the angle of Marcellus is bad because he said 10 guys. I think that's where it kind of, I'm not fully on board with.
If someone was being openly sexist, berate them.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
But the negative impact that can have on his career, because I'm sure he coaches females, I don't know a lot about him, that's tough, right? That's not nice to do for someone. It's like a very sharp sword to be swinging around, right? So do post about it. And if she saw that and felt, damn, here's another example of the sexist reality that we face, okay? Post about it, but Marcellus didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's she could share it and go, oh, actually, this made me remember. This made me think, right? Nothing to do with Marcellus's intent behind it.
And he deserves no politeness, and he's,
come on. Bro, he didn't do anything wrong. So, sure, if I was her, in her position, I would have put up Marcellus's post and gone, here's 10 females, and it's so annoying that females go under the radar more in powerlifting as a result of systemic sexism. Not Marcellus. Marcellus did fine, did nothing wrong.
So yeah, that's what I think as well. She has very valid points that she's raising, 100% on board with those, but I just think the angle of targeting Marcellus to get those points across doesn't sit particularly well with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's all. And hopefully we don't fucking get cancelled. But we didn't say anything. That's the fucking thing. So let's just make it very clear. We like women. We like women.
I love women.
And female coaches, all for it. They deserve a platform, deserve equal opportunities, all those kind of things. But just to try drag someone else down to get that message across, I don't think is fair. Right. Wonder how long that was. That was a long one. Right, we wrap it up. It was a pleasure. I have the website launched now.
Nice.
So if you would like coaching from myself, you can go to evopowerlifting.com, evopowerlifting on Instagram, @Blackwood_ on Instagram. I've got some exciting stuff happening soon. To be honest, it'll probably be posted about by the time this goes up.
Save it because I don't know how many people are going to hear the end of the podcast. So save it for the start of the next podcast. Okay. Andrew Rowe _Odyssey, odysseystrength.ie. Either one for coaching, DM me. Thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.